Okay, I think we are live. Hi, everyone. I am your host, Jennifer Petty, and I want to welcome you to season 2 of the Maternal Health Conversation web series. For those who may have missed season 1 or may not be aware, this is a platform that was born out of the urgent need to address the maternal mortality crisis. This series raises awareness, highlights resources, encourages innovation, and it facilitates important policy conversations to really improve maternal health outcomes. This has impacted me personally. For those who may not know, I have a baby girl who was almost 2. She was born in 2021, and I had a preventable, what should have been a preventable experience took place where I almost lost my life after her birth. So this is near and dear to my heart, and I'm just excited that you have decided to join. Tonight is our special Galentine's Day self-care edition. As we move forward in 2023, I just really want more of us to make this the year of self-care. You know, too often I think we neglect ourselves due to the many demands of life, but our health really just depends on how well we take care of ourselves first. So I'd love for you to upload a photo wearing your red or your pink this evening for Galentine's Day. And towards the end, we will, of course, announce the winner for the self-care box. So I am excited to introduce our featured guest, Marla Middlebrooks. She is a mental health therapist, a proud graduate of the Clark Atlanta University with a bachelor's in psychology and a master's degree in social work. With an extensive passion for outreach, she has served the Department of Veteran Affairs for the past 5 years, working with the suicide prevention team. Now, in addition to these amazing accolades, she is my cousin, and she has one of the most amazing self-advocacy, ideas and philosophy that I have the pleasure of knowing. So everyone, please welcome Marla Middlebrooks.
Hi, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody. I can't wait to see all your pink and red outfits as well, too. So you see, I got my red jacket on. I remembered.
Oh, yeah, because before we jump into this discussion, we both love fashion. So we had to have a moment.
Definitely a moment.
I did ask everyone to wear pink or red. Marla delivered, as you can see. So I need the details on this lipstick, who made this color, this red details.
So you know what? Every time I wear this, everybody stops me and is like, is that Ruby Woo from MAC? Mm-hmm. It is not. It's actually a lipstick pencil that I got from CVS. I'm sorry, but I go to CVS for a lot of my lipsticks. I like the matte. So this one, oh gosh, I wish, what? I just happen to have it sitting close by, I think. Look at me.
Yes.
But this is it. So I can show y'all. It's by NYX. It's a pencil.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So yes, that's the deets on the lipstick. See? So yeah, CVS.
Y'all didn't think y'all were coming here for style tips too, but
look,
we have it all.
Yes, absolutely.
So Marla, thanks so much for joining us. We know you're busy, but we're excited for this conversation. So I want to start off with just asking you to tell us about yourself and the role that self-care plays in your life.
Okay, so like Jennifer said, I am a mental health therapist. My background is in social work. So a lot of the things that I do is with outreach. When I graduated from grad school, I started working in the community. So I don't know if a lot of you guys are familiar with like core agencies where they're like actually like I said, in the community, we work with a whole team, a whole treatment team. And the reason why I wanted to do that instead of going into the hospital is because I really felt like being hands-on and face-to-face with individuals, especially in their natural environment. That was important to me because I also feel like sometimes, people can feel awkward, coming in and talking in a room, especially in a hospital, things like that. I mean, it really depends on what your preference is, but I do know that going into the community, that's where my passion is, because I've found that a lot of people deep in the community, and I'll be specific. I work in Southwest Atlanta. So if any of you guys are familiar with like the West End, Campbellton Road, Greenbrier Mall, all those other areas, I've been working over there for years and I love it. I love the fact that I can educate a lot of them on the importance of mental health and self-care. So I've been doing that for about 12 years, but in between that, I kind of mixed in and kind of got some experience working with the Department of Veteran Affairs with the suicide prevention team program. That was a little bit intense. I would say that I think that when I started doing that, that's when I really had to dive into self-care. Needed, where I found myself being stretched really thin. Right. And I'm a selfless person. So I had to really get to a place of start putting myself first, and really, as some people would say, selfish, I guess, per se. But so I did that for a while. Let's see. I don't know. I'm trying to think, what else can I tell you guys about me? My favorite thing is thrifting. That's what I do. That's one of my self-care things. I guess we'll get around to all that type of stuff. But yeah, that's what I do. I'm pretty laid back. I feel like I'm a non-traditional therapist because I'm all about comfort. I want people to feel comfortable. I already feel like that you're already in a position where you're sharing your most intimate thoughts, sharing your emotions and things like that are very private for you. So my position is just to make you feel as comfortable as possible and also kind of like establish that relationship.
Sure. First of all, I love thrifting. I especially love vintage jewelry. So I had to jump in there.
Look, the best.
But no, going back to what you said, you reached a point to where you realized that you were stretched really thin. And I think it's important to realize that, right? Like, there's an extent where self-awareness becomes key, I think, in a lot of this. And so I'm glad you were able to recognize that. And I hope that after this tonight's episode, that more of us will be able to kind of recognize those signs. Typically when we think about self-care, I think many of us think about kind of like the extravagant examples like travel, going to the spa, bubble baths, and, all this amazing pampering and right. Things that I'm totally a fan of. Right. But I think that sometimes we overlook kind of some of the more simple measures that can contribute to our well-being. And so, for instance, and this is for me just a moment of transparency, I recently added pictures with some affirming words around my house. I created an outlet to express my creative side that I feel is unused in a lot of my work. And I sat down for my manicure a few days ago, and I chose this fuchsia color, which for me is different because I typically stick to this really conservative,
We're so related. Look, we're so related.
And so, I've been walking around for the past few days. I wanted everyone to see my nails. But I say that to say, it's something that's so small. But I mean, these things really have me feeling great. And so I wanted to, just kind of pause and ask you, what are like 2 or 3 simple things that you've recently done for yourself unapologetically?
I would honestly say the simplest thing that I've done in regards to self-care was be intentional about time management. That's the most simplest thing, because I think that a lot of people, like, we wake up, we have these busy schedules. We're always on the go, whether you're a mom, you're trying to take care of the kids, get off to work. Number one, be there on time. Be there on time at that. regardless of whether or not you may work from home, it's like still you have to get the kids up. You got to do this, you got to do that. And you know, whatever it is, I know that when I implemented time management, it was very intentional because I started off a little rocky. You know, I was like, okay, cool. You know what? I'm gonna write it down. I didn't even set an alarm. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. Didn't work out. But then I was like, okay, I have to be intentional about this. I gave myself a task of doing it for at least a week just to see how it worked out for me. And when I tell you I was so less stressed out. Like, because one of the things that stresses me out is not having enough time. And that's usually because I'm always running all over the place. I was like, you know, I'm pretty organized when it comes to my sessions, but I cut it pretty close. I'm like, I never was giving myself a break in between sessions. So I found myself not going throughout the whole day without eating. Like lunch, you know, some people get there, they're like, oh, I'm not hungry. I'm not gonna have no breakfast. Then it's lunchtime, you're still not eating again. And it's like, and then you're wondering why you're fatigued, right? So you're fatigued, you're like all over the place. And it's like, you have to be intentional about time management first. That's hands down. Another thing that I do is I go to the infrared sauna. The reason why I started doing that is I started doing that during the pandemic because the gym was closed. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I tried to trick myself into thinking, well, you know what, if I go here to the sauna, I might can burn a little calories a little bit. But it became a place of meditation for me because not only do you go in there, you sweat, you detox, you can go in there and play the music you want. It could be completely silent. And my thing is with that, like that was my time. Mm-hmm. That was my time for me. So it's kind of like a kill two birds with one stone type of situation. So I did that. And then another thing, thrifting. Thrifting is self-care for me. Mm-hmm. Even if I don't find anything for myself, I just like to find odds and ends and deals and things like that. So those are the simplest. I don't know. I could go on and on. Like you know me, I'm a self-care person. Look, I think I do more self-care than work. I don't know if that's good or bad.
I think it's amazing personally.
So yeah.
So I love the examples. I love those things because I think that they're outside of the box of what, you know, we typically see on television associated with self-care. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I love that. And you know, we talked a lot about recognizing, you know, that you may be stretched thin or you just, for whatever reason, are in need of self-care. And so I wanted to know from your expert experience, like what are some signs for us to kind of look out for that may indicate that we, you know, may be in need for a little KT.
So from a therapeutic perspective, one of the things that's a main sign for us is anything that impacts your physical, like your well, we refer to as bodily functioning, like that. So for example, like fatigue is one. Fatigue, like it could be anywhere. I've had clients that, I mean, they're losing unexpected weight. Let's see, it could be like moodiness, things that you recognize that's outside of your normal character. I think that you should really kind of like pay attention to that. And I feel like each person knows themselves, and you know when you've reached a certain limit, or you know when things kind of just not sitting right. One of my biggest things is discernment. I don't know if a lot of you guys are, you know, knowledgeable about discernment, but we got to tap into that, because a lot of times you feel it. You feel it. I mean, that's the truth. Like, I mean, sometimes your body's telling you one thing, and even your mind is telling you one thing. Like, if it's time for you to leave a job, I'm not trying to tell y'all to leave your job, but I'm just saying. But if you've been thinking about that,
you told us over the summer, right?
Look, I mean, see, but now look, she wants us to leave our job, but now she out here with this tour talking about stuff. Look, she need to pick and choose, because I can't buy tickets with no job. So
when I saw that the back row, I think was like $799.
Beyonce gonna be at that concert by herself. Okay, she gonna be at that concert right by herself.
I am president of the Beehive, but
look, girl, look. I'm gonna ask. State Farm. Do they need some assistance in the food court? That's probably how I'm gonna get it.
Hey, send me a spot. Tell them that you need a spot for two.
Look, something. But no, really, you guys just have to really pay attention to yourself. It's very important. Like, I think that a lot of people, we put more emphasis on our physical health and not just as much on our mental health. Everybody's, we talk about self-care, we talk about healing, but a lot of questions that I get all the time is like, what does that look like? Mm-hmm. 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 So you see all these commercials, you see all this, but it's like, what does that look like? Now, I'm going to be completely transparent with you. It's going to look different for everybody because my healing is going to look different from your healing. The way that I look at it is like, for me to know that I've healed from something is to know that I'm not triggered by whatever it may have been to put me in that space. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's when you know, because we can remove ourselves. Like I tell my clients, like, if you have things in your environment that you can remove that are triggers for you, and you can remove those, but then who's to say that we're not going to be out of town or at work? And those are people and places that we can't remove. Those are out of our control. So then my thing is like, healing encompasses figuring out a healthy way for you to manage and get past that particular barrier that's there for you. And there's no special like sauce. Like I like to tell people, I'm not going to like no little sprinkle or anything like that. It's really about being consistent. You have to consistently want to see yourself on the other side. Mm-hmm. And that can be easier said than done, but it's a process.
I love that. And you're reading my mind because as you were talking, I wanted, we all have we're all different. Mm-hmm. We have a different set of challenges that all, relate to our self-care, right? Our self-care journeys. And so, again, transparent for me, I'm a mom. I'm a high performer. My brain is always on go mode. And it's hard for me to shut it off. In all honesty, at times. And so, I know that for you and for someone else, our girlfriends, again, that may look different in terms of what we identify as barriers. But, would you say that because we have different barriers and because we have different circumstances, that self-care looks different for different people? Or, so if I'm looking at what my girlfriend does for self-care, can I kind of, say, oh, I want to, you know what I mean? Or do I need to kind of come up with my own recipe?
Mm-hmm. I think it's important to come up with your own recipe because like, my thing is like, there's so many different factors that play. I don't feel like people should put pressure on themselves to do everything that they see someone else do, because so many factors play into that, like finances. Mm-hmm. Depending on if somebody's paying, to do this, is there a membership or you got a private person that you're going to, or some people may go out of the country. They like to go to exotic places, things like that. I don't think that you should allow yourself to feel pressured to do that. I think the most important thing is to do whatever it is, honestly, that gives you peace. That's important. Peace. Look, I am an advocate to say, don't believe the hype that you see on social media. Okay. When it comes to all these people are like, oh my God, I'm just living my best life. Oh my gosh. And they very well could. So I'm not knocking on people who really, you know what I mean?
I understand.
But my thing is like, social media already from therapeutic is applying pressure. And I would give an example of, I had a client that was dealing with postpartum. And all of her friends and things were doing all these these different activities and things like that. And, you know, one of the things that we addressed was like, there was that pressure to be present for those events because that's what they like to do. Go out. Like being out was what they consider self-care, being out socializing, because, you know, a lot of people can't handle being either by themselves or isolation. So being out was something they did for self-care. But in that moment, she felt pressured to do that. But that's not where she was comfortable being. So my thing is like, sometimes we have to, this is where being selfish plays a part. You have to focus on like what's here, how you feel here, what you're thinking about here, and what makes you like holistically, like how do you feel for yourself? Like we got to stop following people. Like I think it's important. Like you have to develop your own recipe. Because what I do, somebody might be like, oh, she's doing too much. Well, it's just enough for me. So, you know.
No, I love that because, you know, a lot of people were, for those who may not know, I'm Mrs. Georgia American. And a lot of people were shocked that, you know, wow, you know, how did you decide to, you know, compete in the Miss Georgia pageant, you know, and for me, I'm glad you brought up the postpartum situation because, you know, at that time I was, you know, a little less than 1 year postpartum from having my daughter, Jayla Ann Rose. And, you know, for me, you know, I knew, you know, we talked about knowing that, you know, you're in need of some self-care. I was stretched in, you know, a new mom. I was dealing with the realities of having to transition not only back to work, but back into an office setting where I'm away from her. You know, just so many moving pieces were going on at the time. And so it became, you know, a moment, you know, I was facing a milestone birthday. So it became, you know, what can I do for me? Right. And so for me, self-care looked like preparing myself to be my best self and compete in this pageant. And it served its purpose. I loved it. And, you know, I encourage those who are interested, but I bring up that example to say that might not be the recipe for Jane Doe, right? it worked for me. And that was kind of like one of my things, but, you know, I don't endorse that for everyone who, you know, may not align with that experience. So I'm glad you brought up the importance of really tailoring it to, you know, to yourselves.
And being comfortable with asking for help. I know that there's a lot of times people may not have those people that they can say, like, I can say that I have this person around me that I confidently feel like they will secure my most intimate moments that I don't feel comfortable sharing anybody else. Everybody needs someone to talk to. It may not be your family members. It may be a close friend. It could potentially be a coworker, or even if you don't have any of those this close by you, definitely reach out and at least find you like a mentor or a therapist. I know a lot of people are kind of a little touchy-feely about therapists, but I'm going to tell you, having a therapist is like being in a relationship. And let me tell you, when I get clients, when clients come to me, first thing I tell them is like, you know, once I introduce myself, I allow them to introduce themselves to me as well too. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to go through this introduction. And I say it just like this. And if you don't like me, let me know so I can help find someone else that will be a best fit. And then I'm like, and then I said, but if it's fair, if I don't like you, I'll let you know. So then that kind of makes them laugh because they're like, well, did she really just say that to me? But
yeah,
that's
she's
just
really that honest in real life.
But yes, but when I do that, that's my style of doing things because I want to let them know how real I am. And I'm saying this to say that I've met a lot of people that be like, oh, I don't like therapy. I mean, for what? What do I need to do that for? Like I've had therapy before, it didn't work. But it's so important that you have to have like that type of, you guys have to mesh. Like really, that's important. Me and all my clients, we mesh. If I feel like I'm not equipped to help them, I let them know. I'm not going to be the type of person like, you know what, well, what I really think you should do is no. And if there's anything that I'm not clear on, I let them know, hey, you know what, let me take a look at that. Let me do some research and I'll get back to you in the next session. Like, it's okay. And I think that that's where we will all together as a whole, as a community, start to really feel more comfortable with mental health, is when we can all start having like real conversations.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. And I do want to highlight some things that just came through the chat. Guess we're really happy that you brought up therapy and how you really make the environment safe. And so we see Julie Dotson Reed said self-care equals safe space. And I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Michael says huge proponent of therapy. So, this is really resonating, I think, because, it's practical, but, these are things that I think just really fit the busy times that we're seeing now. And it's perfect because I want to kind of bring this to the COVID-19 pandemic. I know.
COVID.
That's always the, so we know that the pandemic has impacted our lives in so many ways that in some ways we may not even realize right yet. But health, I think, as a result, has become more of a national conversation. Many of us have had expanded opportunities to work remotely instead of in an office setting as a result of the pandemic. I have friends, for instance, who, because of this, they've implemented kind of like workouts on weekdays, or they built like at-home workout spaces. I know there was a point where, you couldn't find a treadmill online.
Right.
Find them.
Right.
And so, I wanted to know from your standpoint, how would you say that the pandemic has impacted our notion of prioritizing self-care?
Let's see. I feel like it's kind of half and half. I feel like a lot of people who may have already had like a schedule or something in place, even if it wasn't something that was very concrete, I think it was a little bit easier for them to kind of be like, okay, let me add a little bit of this here. Let me add this activity here. Let me do this here. And then, it kind of gave them a little bit more, like, I guess, ownership of their schedule, especially people who work remotely. So, but I also feel like when I made that reference of half and half, we also have to keep in mind the individuals that may not have the opportunity to work remotely, and they had to go through such a large transition, where it's either a loss of job, a decrease in income. We dealt with unexpected deaths. We dealt with, like, I think if there was a mental health concern before the pandemic, I think a lot of that was enhanced for a lot of people. And so still, I still find a lot of people that still kind of struggle with self-care, especially my moms, because the first thing they're thinking is like, what does that look like? I just had a mom the other day. She was like, self-care, girl, what you talking about? What does that look like? And so I'm like, oh, well, you could look, after you put the kids down for bed, take a bubble bath, read, go work out, whatever it is that helps you kind of calm down from the day, the hustle and bustle of the day, get you in that peaceful place, even if it's like a hot shower. It could be something that simple, or indulging in your favorite dessert. Girl, you can have like ice cream, apple pie, whatever it is. But I think the important part about self-care, again, that I want to keep on stating, is ensuring that you're taking care of yourself. That's really what self-care is keeping yourself at a baseline in which you're able to function. When it gets to a point where you're missing out on sleep, you're not eating properly, stuff like that, then it's time to go back to the drawing board. But I will say it's half and half. I'm like, look, we're back outside, some of us. But I still find people that are still struggling with self-care. And I think one of the things is that regardless of whether you're a parent or maybe you don't have children or, whatever your current status is that you have to be selfish to some degree. And that was a difficult thing for me because I was always selfless girl. Anytime somebody called me, I'm like, yes, 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 yes. Yeah. But nobody saw me behind closed doors. Behind closed doors, I'm like, But one of my mentors told me, she was like, Marla, you got to be selfish. And I'm like, what? So then that's when I really started to focus in on like my self-care regimen. Now, y'all, I'm a little nervous because I'm telling y'all too much about business, but I'm single. I'm not in a relationship with anybody, but I'm just like, I do so much self-care. I'm like, dog, I don't know. When I find somebody, I don't know, am I gonna have time for them? Look, because I'm so into it. But the reason why I make that a focus is, and I'm gonna say this to get to the point because I can be all over the place, is that how can you give 100% if you're not 100%? You gotta look at it like that. When you're like, well, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. So who's gonna be there to operate and keep things running when you're on E? That's another thing. And then another thing I wanted to say is we also have to be mindful that a lot of the people that are around us, that sometimes that we want them to step in and fill the gap when we're kind of trying to get ourselves together, they may not be equipped or qualified to do that. So we have to be mindful of that. I think, a lot of times people get upset like, oh, well, you're supposed to be, you my family, you my friend, you my this, you're supposed to understand, but you got to understand. You can't assume that all the time. So my thing is you have to be mindful of that because you don't know what they're going through. They just didn't tell you. That's another thing. They just didn't tell you. So they could be as equally stressed, as equally depressed, as they could be dealing with anxiety as well. But maybe they don't feel comfortable to talk, but you're expecting something from them that they're not in a position to give. Sure. And again, we circle back around to self-care. That's when it comes to you have to determine what is best for you in that moment. And you got to make the decision, whether it's creating a schedule of doing certain things, seeking a therapist, finding a spiritual advisor, whatever it is that you feel comfortable with doing, then you have to take those first steps.
So many nuggets just said that I want to kind of go deeper into. One of the things that stood out, you talked about, being single and indulging in self-care now. And I just want to say, I love that because I'm always a proponent of someone bringing their whole selves into a relationship, as opposed to like, I don't subscribe to the other person completes you. I think that you bring your, my opinion, your whole self. And I think that, so knowing, or value, having that value for self-care to me is pretty awesome, and going into it. And there's so many things. Okay. Furthermore, going to your comment about, we don't know what others may be, going through. Like you said, everyone is not as vocal. You have some people who will maybe go to social media as an outlet, right? And kind of like share, what may be going on in their lives. That's great if, that's how, for people who deal with things in that manner. But then you may have others like me, where I rarely, unless, we're actually having a pointed conversation, right? I rarely will publicly, just say, oh God, I'm overwhelmed, right? Or, there's so much going on. This is giving me anxiety. That is just not something, I'm not wired that way. To kind of publicly. And so I love, extending grace to people because you just do not know what, people may or may not be dealing with at that particular time. So thank you for touching on that, because I think that when we talk about self-care, I think there's also a grace where you have to extend that for others to have their self-care too. And so it's not, but along those lines, there's a lot of people, especially in my experience, women who feel, and I think you touched on this earlier, that self-care is selfish. And so like, for someone who may come to you with that mindset, what are some things that you may do or say to kind of help them embrace self-care, and kind of get away from feeling guilty about, doing so?
So really, I just kind of, one of the things I always start off with is I ask them about their strengths. I ask them, what are your strengths? So I take whatever they give me in that moment, and we kind of talk about the strengths a little bit. And then I also ask them I never say weaknesses. That's one thing. I never use that in therapy. I never say, oh, what are your strengths and weaknesses? I say, what are your strengths and areas that need improvement? That's what I say. So usually a lot of times in those areas that need improvement, that's when we start getting to the things where they feel like they're either lacking or like, man, I used to do this, but lately I've been. So then I kind of bring it back around. Like, again, self-care doesn't have to be an activity. Self-care can honestly be you working on those things that you mentioned in areas that need improvement within, like, internally. So one of the things is like, I always have them identify what is it that they wish they could do. And then I ask them, well, why aren't you doing it? Because a lot of times things that we have on our wish list, they're easily acceptable. Even if it's something that, like, whether it's a trip or anything like that. And I say easily accessible in the sense of, now at this time, we're making a plan. So yeah, you might not can go to the Bahamas next month, but you might can go in a year, but let's work towards that. And so I like to create like an action plan. That's what I call it. Create like an action plan. So along the way, they're able to see their progress as they're making it. And I always reiterate to them too, again, how we keep on stressing, self-care looks different for everybody. My thing is I tell them just like this, self-care is basically just taking control. You taking control of what you have control over in your life.
I love that.
That's it. Just taking back that control. Because for some of us, at some point, we lost it along the way. And I don't mind. Like, one of the things I do is I'm very transparent with some of my clients. And I know if there are any other therapists or social workers or anything on here, I know they may be like, girl, that's kind of unethical. But I've been doing it for years. And what I'm about to say, when I share, I feel like at some point as a true therapist, and when you're authentic, sometimes you have to give a little to get a lot. So I'll say that, give a little to give a lot. So I do, I have shared some things about myself, and I'm not ashamed to say that maybe about 6 years ago, I myself dealt with depression. I dealt with depression because after my ex-boyfriend, who's also, me and him are very close, he passed away of cancer. And so we've known each other. We met each other at 17 years old. And now I'm like 31. And I'm like, I've known this person for a long time. Look, thought we was going to get married and everything. But I went through a difficult time. And at the time, of course, I'm a therapist. And I'm like, I can't sit in front of these people and help them get through something. I'm going through stuff myself. Mm-hmm. Like, so really, I had to get back what I lost, which was myself. What were the things that made Marla happy? I had to tap back into those areas. Yes, it took some difficulty, because when you're in that space, you don't see the end. You're just stuck there, and you feel like nobody else around you understands. Oh, you don't get it. You don't understand what's going on. You don't, what can you say to me? I don't want to talk to nobody. And then two, one of the things I started indulging in is I started spending a lot of money. Unnecessary. So some people may have different things they do. Some people, I've heard of people who substance abuse becomes a factor. Mm-hmm. isolation becomes a factor. Not productivity becomes a factor. Yeah, it's really, it's so many different things, but I had to get back to me. So I'm saying that to say that, because I don't want to go too far from the question, because I felt like, I want to make sure I'm answering it specifically for people. Is that my biggest thing is what I tell my clients is, let's get back to you. Let's go back to those moments when you were happy. What was it that made you happy? Because going to the spa may not make everybody happy. They're like, girl, I don't care about going to no spa. Like, you know what I mean? It could be reading, sitting in the park and reading. That's self-care. Like, self-care doesn't have to be extravagant. It's really just taking care of you, getting back to you.
I agree. And I will just say, I met him and he was amazing. And I prayed for you every day when that happened. I want you to know that. Yeah. So I was up late last night, and that I know probably doesn't align with self-care.
Look, you didn't get no rest? Look, I'm messing with you.
I was up late and couldn't sleep. So, it's kind of, on the internet and, looking around. So I came across this article. This article was in a magazine, and there was an author, her name is Barbara Peacock, and she talks about what she calls it soul care, right? And so she talked about soul care and how it's been woven, or how it was woven into the lives of leaders like Rosa Parks, Jessica Ingram, Coretta Scott King, and many of the women leaders of the civil rights movement. And and she talked about how they would not have been able, at least my understanding of it, was that they would not be able to kind of, accomplish what they did without engaging in that, what she calls soul care. And so I wanted to know from your perspective, because I found it interesting. And so what role can meditation or prayer play for those interested in building that into their self-care routines?
Oh, definitely. It plays a large part. Like, I wake up at 5:30 in the morning and I pray and meditate. Like, I feel like when I get up and do that, I'm setting the tone for my day. Whether you do it in the morning or you do it in the middle of the day or you do it before you go to sleep, I feel like whenever you engage in prayer and meditation, it sets the tone. And I feel like it gives you that opportunity to become centered. It kind of like gives you a chance to kind of get balanced. And I'm all for it. Like, I know that even when I was working with the suicide prevention team on the crisis line, I've had a lot of conversations with different veterans and their families. And, when they start talking about, suicide and, wanting to take their lives, like, I've actually had people actively having thoughts in the moment. And my go-to was prayer. My go-to was, now I'm about to start utilizing what I know that can shift the whole mood of the call. And it did it every time. And my thing is, like, some people may feel comfortable with it, some people may not. I mean, again, it's all preference, but for me, it keeps me centered and balanced. So I'm 100%.
No, I love that. I was reading that, soul care. I like that. But
that's first. To me, that's
first.
Look. Like, that is at the top of my self-care list, actually. That's number one.
So I do have to know, I know you reference mentors at different segments throughout this conversation. And so I wanted to know, do you have a self-care role model, whether it's someone that you actually know in real life or whether it's someone that, is kind of, a celebrity? I don't know, but is there like a self-care role model?
You know what? I don't really have a I guess I don't really have like a specific role model. I just take little bits and pieces from a lot of people. I think that's what it is. I always just look at like self-care is like an ongoing thing. You know what I mean? Like you're never gonna like my self-care regimen honestly could change about a week. It depends on, you know, where I am in that moment. So a lot of times I just honestly feel like I said, I get up, pray, set the tone, and I'm just kind of like, okay, God, well, look, do your thing. And I can meet a perfect stranger that particular day that may pour into me about something that I can utilize and take with me. So I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to that. I don't really have one per se,
Sure.
but I'm always open. Look, I'm always open.
So I have to ask, and you've given us so many jewels, but do you have a self-care mantra that you like to leave us with?
In identifying what it is that works for you for self-care, one of the things, and I always tell my friends this, I tell them all the time, we all laugh about it. I always say, have fun until it's not. Have fun until it's not. Whatever it is, have fun with it. And then when it's not fun anymore, look, it's time to elevate, find something else, modify it, but have fun. Self-care should not be associated with pressure. Self-care is supposed to be relaxed. You're just really pouring into yourself. You're doing things that you like, and don't worry about how other people will look at it. Do what's best for you. Yeah, because I'm gonna be honest, I get feedback on my self-care regimens. I'm like, oh, you doing that again? Girl, every day if I want to. Look.
So bad.
Because it's keeping me together, whatever works for you. And also to this, I want to say this for couples, that you also have to communicate, whether you're like, if you're in a relationship, a marriage, whether it's girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatnot. My thing is like, communication is key. That's key. So you guys got to keep in mind too, that both parties need their self-care moments. And you have to get to a place of being understanding about that. Like sometimes separating as in, well, I'm about to go in this other room so I can calm down, chill, get my thoughts together. Or I just want to go back there and read a book. Or I want to watch the game in peace. Like I just want to go back there and watch the game by myself. I'm about to shut the door. And then, us as women like, oh, why are you shutting the door? Oh, you know what? But it's like, we have to respect boundaries. That's another one I think I forgot to touch on too when it comes to self-care, is also remember boundaries. Not only the boundaries that you set for other people, but the boundaries that you set for yourself. You have to definitely be very intentional about all of that. So it's a whole thing. It's a whole process. So that's what I go back to my mantra: have fun until it's not. Have fun
until it's not. I love that. And I don't know if you have been monitoring the chat, but you just answered a question that was in the chat that I was going to raise. So thank you.
Oh, what was the question?
About how to maintain that self-care regimen in the midst of a relationship.
Okay.
So thank you. I don't know.
Communication. Yes. Communication. Yeah. Look, I'm always having these conversations with even though I said that I'm single now, I haven't always been. And of course, that was always a struggle for me and myself, and even some of my girlfriends, is they want to have their time when they want to have their time. But when he has time, it's an issue. What you mean? You know what I mean? But we have to remember, before we were in that relationship together, we were our individual selves. Right. And my thing is, a lot of times I think that that's another thing that's important too, is that when we come together in a relationship, these are two people probably from two different backgrounds. I have my own thing going on. I like certain stuff, but of course, we're a union. We're a unit now. But at the same time, just because we're a unit doesn't mean that I still don't need my space. Exactly. And space, to be honest, is actually healthy. Like, don't look at space as being a negative thing. I think a lot of times when they're like, oh, I need my space. What you mean you need your space? Space for what? No, and that's where communication comes in, because space could just be like, babe, just give me a couple hours. For both, just give me a couple hours. I'll be back. I'm about to go to the gym. I'm about to do this.
We live in the same house.
Right. I'll be back. Look, I'm about to go upstairs. I'm about to go outside, and I'm about to, and it makes me think about, I'll use my parents as an example. One of my dad's favorite self-care thing is honestly cutting the grass. Cutting the grass. Mm-hmm. Girl, if it's a nice day and the grass needs cut, he's out there on that riding lawnmower, and he is like, his little headphones on, he riding for hours.
I am so glad you mentioned that, because, and I know we're going, that is one of Jason's things. So, we live in Atlanta, but that's because Martinsville, Virginia he, on a Saturday morning when it's nice, he wants to go outside. And so it took a while. I was like, well, you mean you don't want to run errands with me on Saturday mornings? He's like, no, I need this.
Right. That's his thing.
I now understand. Let him, do his Saturday morning regimen outside, and the rest of the day, he's so happy. I see that glow, and I'm like, that's his thrifting, or that's his,
Exactly. Exactly. That's what I was about to say. Like, communication, like that's when you're starting to sit down and create this self-care regimen for yourself, like, that's the thing. Like, if you're in a relationship, communicate. Yes. If you're single, of course, you also want to identify what are your needs. That's what you want to make sure you address, whether it's in a relationship or single, your needs. That's major. So one of my needs for me was that I wanted to feel like that feeling of being like decompressed, because I was always like, I gotta do this. I was always all over the place. So I will go work out in the morning and then do the sauna maybe like at night, because in the morning is getting me ready to go. At night, I'm coming back down and getting ready to relax, to go to sleep. So yeah. So that's pretty much it. I don't know. I hope I help y'all.
Thank you, Marla, for joining us. And you've left us so many self-care jewels. There are some people who have been so nice about putting those jewels in the chat. So I'm so glad to have that record. And I'm sure I will be rewatching this video several times throughout this year, personally, to remind myself of them. Please tell everyone how they can get in touch with you, whether it's your social media handles or email, anything you feel comfortable sharing.
Well, you can get in touch with me. My email address is myblank, MYBLANK_canvas, but I spell it CNVS @gmail.com. So currently, yeah. So hopefully, I guess I'll keep Jennifer posted. So hopefully, I want to say in the next 3 to 6 months, I will be opening to receiving new clients. But right now, I'm kind of in transition. Currently, right now. So right now, I'm actually working with a private practice. So I've kind of been with them as a contractor. So yeah. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted. Look. And let y'all know, so she can let y'all know just in case. And another thing too, if you're looking for a therapist, a good way, because I always tell people this, there's so many different therapy outlets out here. If you want telehealth, of course, they're like, look, I'm trying to say it without saying it, because some of them I don't really prefer. So I'm not even going to say the names of the ones I don't prefer. I'm going to let you guys be the judge. But always look at your insurance. Go through your insurance, of course, check with them. They can always give you therapists located in the area. Another one that I've referred people to is Psychology Today, psychologytoday.com. I like it because it allows you to filter through down to, like, as far as, do you want a male, female, ethnicity, religious preference, different things like that. Age, you could pick what age you would prefer them to be in. So try Psychology Today. I'm trying to think. And another thing too, like, a lot of people have really cool ideas on social media. Social media is not all that bad. There's really some dope people out there that put like some nice little jewels on there as well too. So yeah, when I go back and watch this, I can't wait to read what y'all put, because I hope y'all share some of your self-care stuff with me too, so I can try them as well. I'm always open.
Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you, Marla, for joining us.
Thank you.
I told everyone they would not want to miss tonight. So thank you. Thank you. I didn't expect anything less.
Thank you, girl. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was fun. Oh my gosh. Look, it was fun.
So the moment we've been waiting for, we will be unveiling the contents of the self-care box. So we'll start with, make sure. There is a champagne bubble bath candle, which these are all things that I like. This is my self-care, was picking out things that I like. So I like champagne, I like bubble bath. So this is in a candle form, and it smells accordingly. I like to travel. So this is a little, you could either put your passport or your airplane ticket in this. Of course, everything is pink and red for Galentine's Day. Can't celebrate without chocolate. So you have your Galentine's Day chocolate. It's House of Dorchester. Their stuff is pretty good, if you ask me. And last but not least, there is a set to make sure that you are maximizing your sleep. So it includes a satin pillowcase, a matching satin eye mask, and a matching satin scrunchie. And I don't know if you can see, but they have little lipstick prints on them. It's super cute. So that right there, that's the contents of the self-care gift box. I asked someone to help me choose a winner. And so the winner is Julie Dotson Reed. She will be getting the self-care box mailed to her address. But again, I hope you all had as much fun as I did. I hope that we will all commit ourselves to really just prioritizing self-care this year. Our health outcomes, and I'm putting on my public health hat right now, our health outcomes really will be better as a result. So I ask that you please hit the subscribe button, follow us on all social media platforms at Maternal Health Conversations. Also, you can find my personal social media across the board. It's just Jennifer Petty. Petty is spelled P-E-T-T-I-E. Please tune in for our next episode on February 28th. We will discuss birth plan considerations for moms in maternal care deserts. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. So happy Galentine's Day to you all. You're all my favorites. I wish you peace, health, and wellness. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you, Marla.
Good night, y'all.